Hey guys, and welcome to our first installment of our AP US History lecture videos. And before we get started here, I want to just kind of give you guys a breakdown of what these are and how you should be using these as a tool in our class. So obviously with our schedule, we just don't have the time to go through and lecture on content. Most of our class time is going to be going through discussions or going through primary sources or readings or how to do the different essay questions and so forth. So this is a way for you guys to get the content and bring it to class so we can dive a little bit deeper. This is a way for you guys to kind of bring information that you've obtained and then from personal experiences as well to kind of help solidify arguments for discussions, debates, also to kind of formulate and then put in perspective when we do primary source readings. So it's a way to kind of further understand. So what I need from you guys is when I push these videos out, I need you guys to be on your A game with watching these, with taking notes on these, and to using this as a way to gain content along with the readings that I give you out of your textbook. Please do not blow these off. This is a great way to help you. Obviously, it's not the only thing that you need to do, but it is a great way to help also with studying, to go back through and look at the different parts of our content. Also, just to keep you on your toes, I may frequently, or every so often, give you a little quiz on the notes along with the readings, just to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Also, as you're going through these, if you ever have a question about something that I maybe did not specify or was not clear about, please bring those questions in with you, and when we discuss the notes, we will certainly try to answer and clear up any confusions or questions you might have had. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get into our first lesson today. And again, if you look here at the board, or at the screen, you can easily see we're talking about the Age of Exploration. And we're really going to kind of focus on a lot of different key parts of our first period here in this video, focusing on what's happening with the Native Americans before the Europeans arrive, how the Europeans are changing the lives of Native Americans, and how do the different European groups interact differently with the Native Americans. So what we're going to see is that the Spanish interact differently than the French, per se, or the Dutch, or the British. So we're really going to kind of compare and contrast how they interact with the Native Americans as well. So the first part, and this is stuff that you guys should have obtained from over your summer break assignments, was that before Columbus arrived, before the Europeans showed up, there was a vast and diverse different amounts of Native American groups, and they all lived very differently. There was not this one specific type of Native American culture, and depending on where you lived, very drastically dictated the way of life for your culture. The Apaches lived completely different than the Iroquois or the Seminoles. Okay, some of these people were fishermen. Some of them were typically hunters and gatherers. Some of them were typically farmers. Some of them were typically more patriarchal. Some were matriarchal. Gender roles kind of dictated, and some of them were even different than when the Europeans come over. Okay, so we know there was a vast, diverse land before the Europeans showed up. So now that we've kind of set the stage as far as what the Native Americans or what North America looked like before the Europeans arrived, now we really want to kind of take a quick look at why the Europeans showed up, what drove or what kind of pushed them out of England and pulled them towards North America. And during this time period, we just kind of put your world history hat on for a little bit and think about kind of where in perspective we are in time. So I'm about like the early mid late 1400s. Okay, so we are just getting kind of out of that Middle Ages and into the beginnings of the Renaissance, and with that comes this kind of yearning for knowledge, yearning for learning, wanting to kind of figure out what's out there. This age of exploration, trying to find out things that are new, whether it's in science, geography, art, literature. All different aspects that we talk about in world history are leading to a change in European culture, and as far as how that dictates American culture, well, that kind of drives the Europeans like Spain, like France, like England to want to come to the New World. And by doing this, a lot of them are dictated by kind of thing about like the 3 G's of exploration. And we talk about this ad nauseum in world history, but the gold, God, and glory. Okay, and looking for trade routes. Okay, having these overseas colonies, the system of mercantilism setting up for them to operate and be financially beneficial for the mother countries like a Spain, like a France. They're also looking for discovery of natives to kind of spread Christendom and try to spread Catholicism to other parts of the world. finally, they're looking for glory. They want to, not just for themselves, but for their countries as well. They want to try to bolster themselves on the world scale. They're looking for power. Okay, Spain wants to be better than France, and or Portugal, and England wants to be better than France, and the Dutch just want to be able to come in and make a whole bunch of money. So they're all trying to kind of compete for these trade routes, and they're all trying to compete for this land because they want to help bolster their mother countries. And with this, we know, of course, it comes with the Columbian Exchange, and really one of the most important things in world history, and really changes the history of the world forever, as far as this exchange of goods, things like food, livestock, plants, vegetables, diseases, beasts of burden. All these things are going to change over and come to both the old world and the new world that hadn't been there before. People's diets are going to change. People's life expectancies are going to increase because now more caloric foods are being introduced to Europe. Okay, where before they might have been struggling. So a lot of these things are changing. Lifestyles are changing, not only for Europeans, but also for the Native Americans. As far as having horses now, again, these beasts of burden are changing. So a lot of more Native American groups are becoming hunters and gatherers, or nomadic, because they're chasing buffalo, where they had not done so previously. And of course, we should know this already before, that a lot of Native Americans are going to fall ill to the diseases that are coming over. This is one of the indirect causes or indirect effects of the European exchange, that things like smallpox are coming over for the first time, measles, okay, typhus, influenza. These diseases are coming over and killing them in record numbers, and in some cases upwards of 90% of populations are going to die off. And as you see on this chart here, that the populations are going to dwindle very drastically. Think of the effects that has on a civilization. Think about like the Black Death, things that are happening in Europe just before this time period. When you lose that many million people, or that large amount of population in such a short amount of time, the drastic negative effects as far as your ability to defend yourself, to feed yourself. Your economy will crash because you're losing workers in different fields. So this has a huge drastic negative impact on the Native Americans once the Europeans show up. So now we're going to kind of go in and we're going to try to focus on the different versions or the different types of exploration that are happening from Europe as far as the countries that are coming over. So we're going to kind of take a look at comparing and contrasting Spain's exploration to that of France, and to that of England, and to that of the Dutch and the Portuguese. And we're going to focus on these 4 or 5 different countries because they're just the ones that are majorly coming over to the New World. We're not really going to focus on Russia or Sweden at all. We're going to mostly focus on these 4 or 5 because they have the largest impact on North America moving forward. So the first one here we're going to take a look at is Spain. They're really kind of the leaders. Columbus being the first one to come over for Spain. In 1492, we know he hits the Caribbean islands, and from there comes Cortez, Ponce de Leon, a lot of other explorers, and we can see kind of by this map here, everything in this like pale orangish color is going to be controlled by Spain. And they take a large chunk of modern-day Mexico, North America, Latin America, and also parts of South America. Now, as far as why they're coming over, they're mostly looking for the first G of exploration, which is gold. They're looking for gold and silver. They're looking for trade. They're looking for ways to make money for the mother country. Again, this economic system being called mercantilism. And we have different examples of that, with being either Pizarro and the Incan Empire, or the Aztecs being conquered by Cortez. And from this, the amount of wealth and power that Spain gains is extraordinary. And it actually becomes so much, they mine so much gold and silver, mostly silver, that it actually causes deflation in the currency, and they actually go through a depression during King Philip's rule, because they flood their economy with so much gold and silver, so much currency, that it cannot withstand that inflationary period. But because of the success of the Spanish colonies, it's going to lead to others wanting to try to compete. Again, it's kind of this sense of nationalism or glory, that other G of exploration. These countries don't want to fall behind, and they're all going to look for permanent settlements now in the New World. So one of the things to think about too, as far as what Spanish colony life is like, is that there's a very strict caste system, and some of them will have this, some of them will not have this, but the Spanish definitely do. And this actually set up issues. And if you think about it from a world history perspective, this caste system will set up extraordinary issues in countries like Mexico moving forward, because you have social classes that are strictly defined and that are looking for revolutionary means come the 1800s. But from our perspective here, just know the different social classes as far as what makes up Spanish colonial society. And at the very, very top, you're less than 1%ers. You have what's called the Peninsulares. And this man here in our picture on the right, he is a Peninsulare. And you can kind of guess probably what his life is like based on how he's dressed. He's a commander. He's an officer. He's probably a governor of some sort. I almost about the word's called viceroy. But he is in control. Now, what makes a Peninsulare, that word peninsula, meaning that you were born on the peninsula, the Iberian Peninsula, where Spain is located, Spain and Portugal. So those who were born in Spain and came over from Spain to the New World are considered Peninsulares, and they're the highest class of people in the New World. We then get down into the Creoles. Okay, your Creoles are your second class. You can see they're a little bit bigger than the Peninsula, but they're not the majority. These people are European descent, but they are born in the New World. So kind of the best way to think about this is, like, for my perspective or my family, we are German descent, but I was not born in Germany. I don't think of myself as a German. I'm American. I'm from the United States. So these Creoles, they might have Spanish ancestry, but they were not born there. So that they're part of Spanish culture, but they were not born. They were born in the New World. The mestizos are your next class. And your mestizos are they're a mixture of somebody who has both native descent and also European descent. Because a lot of the people who are coming over from the New World in Spain, because they're looking for gold, they're looking for wealth, are men. Men have certain desires, and because there's not a whole lot of women, a lot of these European men are starting to mix in with the native women. And they're creating a class called mestizos, so people who are born of both native and also European descent. This next class on the way down here would be your Indios, or your Native American population. That's your largest chunk of population of people who are just born here, who are ethnically Native American. And then at the very, very bottom, you would have your lowest, your small class here, the African slaves, those coming over from the Columbian Exchange or the Middle Passage to work on the plantations. So real quick here, I just wanted to share this map with you because it kind of shows just how much territory Spain is actually going to control eventually by the time exploration is all said and done. And we have, via the Treaty of Tordesillas, what kind of splits that between Spain and Portugal. And then Spain basically gets all the rest of Latin America. You have most of South America, or the western part of South America. You have all of Central America, and then you have modern-day California, all the way up through like Colorado and so forth, down through Mexico and North America, and also parts of Florida and the Caribbean. Now, why are they coming over? Why are they the Spanish colonizing so much? They're looking for major two things. Again, we talked about gold and silver, looking for trade, looking for economic benefits, and they're also looking for Catholicism. Or I should say, they're looking to spread Catholicism. They're looking for missionaries to be able to come over, and they're looking to kind of indoctrinate or teach the Native Americans how to be Catholic. And both of these things are going to be done at these encomienda systems, which we're going to take a look at a little bit deeper in class. But they're both going to use the Native Americans for labor and also trying to convince them to switch religions. Now, as far as who's in control, who's governing these, we're going to see this is very different from that of the British. This is going to be a very tight monarchy-based system. Think about kind of where we're coming out of. We have a lot of feudal life in Europe still happening, like from the Middle Ages, where you have kings and lords and so forth and vassals, and that's essentially what's happening here. You have kings and lords who are appointing these vassals, or what's called viceroys, to strictly govern the colonies. And these people were appointed, and they had the authority of the king, and they were doing it in the name of the king. And the people that were working there did not have freedoms. They didn't have freedom of speech and any things that we kind of think of today. They basically are living under a autocracy or under a strict monarchy. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the economies here, the mercantilist system is based on mining and it's based on farming. So you have various different cash crops like sugar, eventually tobacco, are going to be farmed on these encomienda systems, or these plantation systems, or these haciendas. And you also have these mines that are taking place in extracting large swaths, or bullion, which is just another name for large amounts of gold and silver, that are happening here in the Spanish colonies. And so one of the ways that we like to characterize before we move on to the other different civilizations with the Spanish, as far as their relationship to the natives, it's more of a kind of get out of my way. and we'll talk about this in class as well. We'll watch a Tom Ritchie video where he kind